Do a quick introduction for those who aren't aware. This is Ylchema. He's the CEO of Wand Investments, which is a really exciting and super innovative DeFi project that's essentially created a token called Scepter or Scepter.
Scepter.
Scepter, awesome. That only ever increases in price. Now, there's some really clever mechanisms going on behind the scenes that allow this to be possible. But that's not where it ends. Wand is actually a project that has 3 separate tokens that all work in unison, supporting the other to provide different strategies and benefits to the investors who are involved in the project. These guys have been working really hard for about 7 months, weathering the bear market and fighting through all of the collapses and all of the fear that's happened over the last couple of months, and recently launched last week. So really excited to have a chat. And I think probably to get us started, Ylchema, is just to give us a bit of a rundown about yourself, about the last 7 months, where the sort of idea come from with Wand and Scepter, and where you are now.
Absolutely. So myself, I started investing in in crypto, starting with Bitcoin, then some altcoins, then going into DeFi to start farming, and then to the home forks. And all that started for me in last August, so essentially a year ago. And one of the things that has struck me essentially with the rebasing tokens is that when you looked at the white papers in last November or December, they would all say how sustainable they are, how you would have X Lamborghinis within a certain amount of months with their calculators and so on. And at the same time, they would have like 1,000,000% APY. So essentially, the thing that that was kind of difficult for me to grasp was how far their marketing strategy was from the reality. They were selling something that was not the product that was advertised. And at that moment, I was thinking, okay, how can we make an home fork sustainable? I've been thinking about many different ways to do it, like variable APY, lockup periods, streamers of revenues, and so on. But my conclusion was that as long as your APY, as long as there is even an APY, then there is not going to be enough sustainability. If you mint tokens that are not bought by the investors, if you just mint them out of thin air, then you create some tokens without value backing them, and therefore you create some token dilution, which means price decrease. So that's why the higher the APY, the less sustainable it is. And so I've taken this logic to its extreme, which is 0% APY. So we don't mint tokens out of thin air. So the question then is, how do we make it attractive and beneficial? If you don't create tokens out of thin air, then it means that you need the value of the tokens to increase. That's the other way to kind of produce some growth or some capital appreciation. And for that, we've thought about several mechanisms, which are all based around the idea that the main token, Scepter, is fully 100% backed by stablecoins. So the value of the token is the value of the treasury divided by the number of tokens. If you increase that ratio, you increase the price. If you decrease that ratio, you decrease the price. And we don't want that. So the name of the game here is to ensure that no matter what happens, that ratio is going to increase. The first way is when investors buy. And essentially, they buy above the backing price or above the ratio. And the gap between the backing price and that ratio goes to the treasury. And that gap, that amount of money that goes to the treasury without being matched by an equal creation of token is going to increase the price for everyone else. When investors sell, then they will sell below that ratio. And again, the gap that stays in the treasury without tokens is going to increase the ratio for everyone else, which means that when an investor is selling their Scepter token, the price is not decreasing, which is what happens most of the times. Instead, the price is actually increasing, which means that we are kind of bulletproof. Like even if some whales are dumping, the price is only going to increase, so it's not a threat to the protocol or to the other investors. But until then, I mean, we are sure that the price is not going to decrease, but it's still fairly circular. Like it's everyone else's money that goes from hands to hands, but it still comes from the investors, and we wanted to go further than that. And we thought, well, since we are going to have a big amount of stablecoins, we can farm with them. And when we farm with the stablecoins, we create some new tokens. We generate some revenues, and the revenues are staying in the treasury, so they participate to increase the price of the token. So this is the core tokenomics for Scepter. Whatever happens, whether you buy, you hold, or you sell, there is some added value to the price of the tokens. So it's a kind of token that you can buy, you forget about it for some weeks or even some months and years. And when you want to sell it because you need your money, you're sure that the value of your capital has increased. And this is what we are actually proposing. This is a store of value token.
Awesome. So like essentially the way that people can imagine it is when you go on holiday and you might be buying some foreign exchange at the airport, they will have a higher price if you want to buy it and a lower price if you want to sell it. And they obviously make their money in between, but that's not, you guys aren't making profit on that extra. That's going back into the treasury, which is increase. Is that correct?
Most of it is going to stay in the treasury, but also a part of 5% is going to the dev wallet because we also need some form of revenues.
But of course.
But most of it is staying or going to the treasury. Our model of tax is actually fairly small if we compare it to a lot of protocols where there is like taxes of up to 15%. Ours is 5%, so it's quite small, and because we want that purchase and sales have a bigger impact on the treasury growth, and also the team didn't have like a freely minted token at launch, so this is where our income comes from.
Yeah, but I think it's super interesting, the mechanics of how that works, because ultimately, regardless as to whether somebody buys or sells, the treasury is increasing in value, which in turn is increasing the price of the token. So this is, like you said yourself very correctly, it's a long-term store of value play where you can purchase your Scepter tokens, and although you're going to be getting technically less for your money when you purchase because of how the buy and sell percentages work, over time, with buys and sells happening from other investors, ultimately the price is going to increase past your entry point after your tax, if you want to call it that, and you're then going to be heading into profit. So what would it work out to be? Is it around, so let's say you were to buy in, how much would the price have to increase for you to begin to turn a profit?
30%. There is a 20% buy tax and a 10% sell tax. When there is a lot of buy or sell pressure, that tax is increasing, but it's all displayed in the DApp. But essentially, if there is not a huge amount of volume, the tax is going to be around 30% if you make the addition of the buy and the sell tax. And this is for Scepter. There is also the second token, which is Baton. And actually, we are having a vote about how we are going to allocate the treasury. And essentially, if you have Scepter, you buy it, you hold it, then you can sell it and make a profit, or you can burn it and receive Baton. When you burn it, the money that is behind your Scepter is going to the Baton treasury, which is fully separate, and it's another multisig. And what we do with the Baton treasury is that we invest it. It's a mix of stable coins and native network coins and blue chip tokens. And the rewards are used in three ways. 45% are airdropped to the investors every week. 45% are compounded, which means that because of the compounding, the treasury is growing even if new people are not burning their Scepter for Baton. And it means that the airdrops are going to regularly increase, assuming that the market is not too red. And the third is 10% going to Dev Wallet, which is our second source of income. At the moment, what we are headed towards doing, I mean, the vote is going to end on Tuesday, but it's pretty likely to pass. We're going to be short farming with a fair amount, like 50% of the treasury on Alpaca, which means that the APY is around 20%. Given that it's low risk, I think it's quite good. And it's short farming, which means that if the price of the assets is decreasing, the value of the treasury will increase. And I believe that the bear market is not coming to an end. There is a relief rally, but we're still going to see more red. And it means that essentially the treasury is going to increase when there is more red. And then for the next bull market, we will be in a very good position to really increase our gains significantly. Then we're going to use 25% to farm with some only blue chip tokens, like some BNB, some AVAX, some Matic, and some other similar tokens that long term will also increase in value. And then 25% of it will be used with bots. We've seen that a lot of strategies can allow us to make between 20 and 50% monthly returns. So we're going to go with these strategies that are like very good in value and not crazy on the risks. And because of the 45% compounding, I think that within a few months, the airdrops coming for the Baton holders will be very, very nice.
Yeah, it sounds like a a great strategy for where we are in the market. So to sort of unpack what you said there, investors will enter the ecosystem and purchase Scepter token. They can wait for over time for the price to rise as it's designed to do, and then they have two options. They can either sell for a profit or they can burn their tokens for Baton, which will then provide them a steady source of passive income that is generated through the treasury. And is that going to be paid in a stable coin?
Yeah, every week we're going to airdrop the rewards as USDC because it's I mean, most people appreciate that stable coin. It's also backed by dollar, so it's one of the safest stable coins.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a great shout. So essentially what you guys are going to be doing is playing your treasury as safe as possible in terms of the farming, and then when or if we ever get out of this bear market, looking to sort of maybe turn up the risk slightly with the blue chip cryptos and look to also leverage trading bots. I've seen quite a few places that are looking or using the trading bots now. They seem to be a fairly successful endeavor. Is that something that you've had on your radar for a while, or something that you've sort of, as you were mentioning at the beginning, I don't know if the listeners who came in a little bit later caught it, but we were briefly talking about the collapse of UST, and you were saying that you were very grateful that that happened before you launched, because that was a place that you were considering putting some of the low risk funds. I mean, a lot of people thought that was very low risk, didn't they? And
Yeah.
so, I've seen some horrendous stories of people being burned in that situation. So I think that was a bullet dodge for you guys. But in what ways did that kind of force you to reevaluate your strategy with the Treasury? And was that the sort of catalyst that forced you to look at things such as trading bots and other areas?
So it has mainly forced us to have a reflection for the Scepter treasury, which is 100% stable coins. Like at that moment, we would have considered having a fair amount of UST and even a little bit of leveraged UST with Abracadabra, yeah. And of course, when this happened, we thought, okay, we are lucky that we didn't launch before that. Now let's look at which stablecoins we can actually use for the Scepter treasury without risking that if there is such an event again, we would essentially have a lot of stablecoins that depeg, and therefore the price of Scepter would decrease. So we came to the agreement to use mostly stablecoins that are backed by dollars, because it's kind of the gold standard of collateralization. And then also a little bit of tokens that have, of stablecoins that have proved over time that they are resilient. For instance, if you take DAI or Frax, which are also fairly safe stablecoins, not as much as a USDC, for instance, but they're still good. They're not fully backed by dollars, but and at some points they have been unpegged, but the unpeg was not so big, and they eventually regained peg, so they are still on the safer end of stablecoins. And this is the kind of reflection that this event has led us towards thinking about not just is it a stablecoin or not, but what is behind the stablecoins. How is this stablecoin working, and is it going to be reliable in the case of a black swan event? Regarding the bots are not for the Scepter treasury, because the Scepter treasury, our promise is that the price will only increase. And bots are fairly reliable given a few weeks or a few months. You're pretty sure to be in gain, but pretty sure is not good enough for Scepter. So for Scepter, we cannot even use bots because they're not safe enough. We really want to be only farming with stablecoins. So bots will be used for the risk treasury, which is like it's a different treasury that we do some high risk, high rewards investments, and the share of the rewards from that treasury will go to the Scepter and Baton treasuries. So it's a way also for us to ensure that if you hold Scepter or Baton, you go with low or medium risk, but you also benefit from higher rewards investments. And for myself, I've been looking at some bots for quite some time now. Ones from Simon Baker, from Breadmaker, and from Elevate, for instance. But I've only started using them myself quite recently. In part for myself, because I'm also an investor, and also to ensure that everything works smoothly, and just to know how it works in practice, so that when we implement them for the one treasuries, for the Baton treasury especially, we know how it works, and we can make it fast and efficiently and without any mistake.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to be investing your treasury into something, it's a wise move to give that a test run first and understand what you really could look to expect over a certain period of time, to give you an idea on how you would move forward with that and the effect that would have overall on the project. But yeah, that sounds super interesting. So what we have is, so in total, you actually have 3 tokens, don't you? So we've got the Scepter token, which is the ever increasing token. And we've discussed how that increases in price through a higher buy and a lower sell. And you then have the Baton token, which is the rewards token, which airdrops holders in USDC. And to gain that, investors can either they can sell their Scepter for a profit or they burn it for Baton. And then the third token is the Wand token. So would you mind just covering where that fits in and how that all sort of links together with the platform?
Absolutely. So the first thing you need to know is that this is a token that you as an investor will not see. So it's still an important token, because what we do is that when an investor is buying Scepter, we mint one Scepter and we mint one Wand token. That one token has the same value as the Scepter token. And what we're going to do is that we're going to use that Wand as collateral on a lending platform. And against that, we're going to borrow some stable coins that we are then going to invest. So essentially, it's something that's going to be working in the background that the investors will not see, they will not hold it, but we're going to use it to create a sensible boost to the Scepter treasury, like to have more tokens farming with it, and therefore generating more revenues to support the price of the appreciation of the Scepter price faster.
Okay, so essentially it's working to sort of bootstrap the project and thicken your treasury and essentially add stronger foundations and more liquid to your project to be able to facilitate everything that you're looking to do.
Yeah, it's essentially like a secret tool or a hidden tool that we're using to create more streams of revenues for the Scepter token.
Yeah, which is why it's called Wand, because it's magic and it brings
Yeah.
magic's more money. No, that's
Yeah,
awesome. I think it's a super, like the way you've thought up the mechanics of how all this works is brilliant, Ylchema. I think everybody listening would agree. The idea of having a token that only ever increases in price after the last, what is it now, 10 months? When did we start trending down? I think it was November last year.
yeah.
The idea of
Yeah.
an only ever increasing token sounds like bliss to a lot of people right now. And I think regardless of current market conditions, obviously, unfortunately, a lot of people have been wiped out and people have been wrecked and burned by the market. I think what you have created here is a future-proof token that, as we begin to pick up more steam and your project has been tried and tested, because I think a lot of the time with things like this, everybody has the mindset of, oh, if it's too good to be true, then it probably is. But I personally believe that DeFi is sort of rewriting those rules, the way that we're doing things now, and what blockchain and decentralization is making possible, especially in the finance world, is allowing things to happen that have never been possible before. And I think, like for yourself, who's kind of, I would say what you're doing is very revolutionary in the finance space. And I think what is likely to happen with you guys is, as you begin to pick up steam and you prove and battle test your project and people actually see it working, you're going to attract a lot of new investors. And I think you could really see a huge influx of users as time goes by, because everybody that ever front runs something like this, or sort of runs into battle first, everybody's waiting on the sides to see how things sort of play out. And I think your mechanics are there. What you've built is very, very innovative, and yeah, I'm excited to see how you progress. And I think it's something that could be super successful because, I mean, look, who doesn't want a token that only ever goes up in price?
Well, yeah. And
Yeah,
I mean, you're right that I think that a lot of people are just waiting on the sideline to see if it actually works.
yeah,
What we do know for now, I mean, we've only launched 10 days ago, but we've run a lot of simulations, and some people have run simulations and they couldn't break the model. We have had a code audit by Prisma Shield. They've also audited Sphere, Titano, and some others. And the code is also sound and it works as intended. And since launch, we also see that the price is increasing as it should. The backing price is increasing, and it hasn't been decreasing yet. It hasn't been decreasing. So we had a theoretical proof. Now we're starting to have a practical proof that it is working as it should. And of course, it's going to be more and more visible over time. Our challenge is actually to create some volume. Until our launch, 100% of our marketing has been organic. So like the only paid marketing we did was to pay for the white paper to just have it beautifully designed. But that's it. Now at the moment, our marketing manager is creating some relations with some influencers. So it's like a slow start in terms of marketing, and it's quite frustrating, I know, for myself and for some community members, which I totally understand. It's also, I believe, a better approach, not short term, obviously, but medium and long term, because what we are doing is we're not going to attract some people who want a pump and dump. We're not going to attract some like some moon boys and everything. So approaching the influencers that usually sell tokens that do pump and dump, or that have I don't know how many percent of daily APY. I don't think that it would be the right approach for us because we are not targeting the same investors. Instead, what we want is to create some relationships with some influencers who are working on the education of the investors, from not a quick and dirty growth, but something that is more closely aligned to our approach, which is something safe, sustainable, and rewarding over time.
yeah. And that's, I think that's key. Education is always key, especially when you're doing something that hasn't been done before. And that can be frustrating in the short term. And, like you were saying, the, the the biggest challenge for any business in any area of the world, whether that's crypto or outside of crypto, is, generating revenue and customers. And for you guys, what you're doing is launching in the depths of a very hard bear market. And, no matter how no matter how much you try to push that organically, you're always going to come up against the blockade of the overall sentiment of not just the market but the economy. you know Essentially you're swimming up, you're swimming upstream. But I think on the other side of that, I hesitate to use the saying blessing and a curse. I don't think that's correct, but the benefit you get out of that is that you get to launch your product, which is the first of its kind, and really see it working without an insane amount of capital or users. Essentially, just sort of flooding in. And like you were saying a minute ago, you've launched 10 days ago. You can see things are working, and you've got that space to have a look and sort of assess how things are going and really see things in action. And now begin to up the marketing, attracting new investors, and having some nice, slow, sustained growth over time as the market recovers. And as things do begin to get better, you'll have a really nice amount of experience and data under your belt to be able to drive forward and really push the project, as far as it can go, and attract as many investors as possible. Once you have that path to show people that, look, this has only increased, it's gone from X to X. The investors have made X amount from this point. We're paying weekly with Baton. This is a no-brainer, really. And once you get to that inflection point, I think you would see exponential growth, because what's the reasons why somebody wouldn't invest? Everybody has a different risk profile, and obviously some people are going after shit coins and they want a 10x flip and risking all their portfolio. But I think for long-term sustainable gains that you can depend on, a token that only ever increases in price, and another token, Baton, that pays you a passive income, that's a lot of people's dream.
Yeah, and I think that we often talk about passive income, like that's kind of a motto, like the things that we repeat perhaps the most in DeFi. But if you need to spend 1 or 2 hours a day to manage what you call passive income, I don't think it's passive. It's actually another kind of job. And what we want to offer is something where it's actually passive. So it's not going to be those crazy gains, but it is passive. It is something that you receive weekly or whenever you want, and you don't have to do any kind of work for it.
Yeah, I mean that's the dream, isn't it? Just make a bucket ton of money and head off to the Bahamas and drink margaritas on the beach and have a look at your portfolio every now and again and see the price of Scepter rising. Happy days.
That sounds very good.
Yeah. So I'd like to quickly, obviously we covered the 3 tokens, how they work, and yeah, very, very interesting. I'd just like to sort of circle back very quickly, just because I know you also have the 3 different treasuries. You have mentioned them sort of every now and again throughout this AMA. But exactly what are the 3 treasuries, and what do they represent? What's your goal for those treasuries?
Sure. So Scepter is backed by the Scepter Treasury. The Scepter Treasury is 100% stable coins, which we invest just to farm with it. We only invest in some farms that have been audited and that have a good track record. Just because there is the risk of unpaying, but also smart contract risk, and we want to avoid that. So here we don't go crazy. Again, we want something sustainable, and that's going to work for a long time. So yeah, for Scepter, it's pretty simple. We just farm with stable coins. We compound the revenues generated, and that increases the price of Scepter.
Yeah.
For Baton, which is backed by the Baton Treasury, what we do is that we invest a part with short farming, as explained before. A part will be just some blue chip tokens farming, and another part will be some bot trading, 25% of the treasury. Later on, we're also going to develop some other solutions to bring more diversification and also some other ways to generate revenues, but I'll come back to it later with SpaceX. And then we have a third treasury that has been funded with some seed funding. And what we do here is that we do some higher risk, higher rewards investments. And 33% of the rewards are compounding so that it can grow. 33% are going to go to the Scepter Treasury and 33% to the Baton Treasury. This way, if you're holding Scepter or Baton, you also benefit from the investments on the not DGen, but on the higher risk side of the DeFi landscape, which means that we can kind of combine low risk and high rewards given a sufficiently long period of time.
Yeah, I think you've sort of covered every basis there with your treasuries. You have super low risk in terms of Scepter, has to be that way because that's your backing. then you have your sort of low to more medium size risk if you're looking at the blue chips, and then your higher risk plays to sort of facilitate, a bit more gains and further strengthen the backing of those tokens. So that's super interesting. The whole concept of the 3 treasuries and how you play that out. I think it's going to be interesting to see how you perform and how things go, especially on the higher risk side. I was also going to say to everybody listening, Ylchema has been very kind to offer a giveaway throughout this AMA for the best questions. So if anybody has any questions that are popping up into their mind, it's $100 giveaway for the best question. And I think it's a very interesting concept. And I think when I first looked into Wand, I'd spent a good few hours fully researching it, trying to get my head around it. And I think that it's something that people will have questions over time. And one thing I was going to ask, like, are you sort of putting together any educational content on a website? Will there be any videos that you'll direct people to be able to gain an understanding, before they sort of look to invest? Is that something that you've looked at or are going to do?
So we have creating some flowcharts videos with some voice explanation. We also have the AMAs. We also want to create some more, let's say, animated videos, but it's something that we are working on, like on the early stages at the moment. I would say that right now the best resources to learn more about Wand are essentially, if you go on our Discord, there is the channel called Read This First, which is pretty self-explanatory. And here we link towards the white paper, but I mean, I think that it's more on the second, at the second step that you should read it, but a thread on Wand by Economizer, which is extremely simple and yet quite detailed. And then we also linked towards the most important videos, and we're going to add some content there as well.
Yeah, I think that will offer a lot of value, because when people don't understand things and they feel confused, they tend to sort of shut their laptop or put their phone down and walk away. You reach that point where you're like, I don't quite get how this works, and you get confused and you kind of give up. So yeah, I think that kind of content will be extremely beneficial on onboarding new investors. Awesome, man. So obviously you launched 10 days ago, and I imagine you've been spending the last sort of 10 days sort of feeling things out and seeing how things are going. So I just wanted to ask what the next couple of months look like for you, what you've got in the works. Are you looking at any partnerships? Is anything coming up? How's that looking for you guys?
Absolutely. So in terms of, well, I'll make the connection between the last 10 days and the future. Over the last 10 days, what we're doing is that we are reorganizing the team. We are going to change the treasury manager, so that we can become more efficient and more proactive in how we manage it. So most of the investments will be done finished today for Scepter. They've already been spread through the first week. What we have in store is that essentially we want the marketing to ramp up. We are creating those relationships, and we think that they are going to bear fruits fairly soon. Of course, I don't have an exact date or time to give, but given what our marketing manager is sharing with me, it's actually looking quite good. What I expect is, in terms of tokenomics, is that we're going to open the door for investors to burn their Scepter into Baton within a few days. Say, okay, you wanted some Baton, now go for it, because we've been kind of holding the horses back so that Scepter price could increase a little bit before they burn it for Baton. When that happens, a lot of people are going to burn their Baton, their Scepter for some Baton. which means that because only 90% of the value goes from the Scepter Treasury to the Baton Treasury, we're going to see a price appreciation of Scepter over especially towards the end of the week. At first, the Baton airdrops will be fairly small because it's only medium risk. It's some farming on alpaca and so on. And again, it's sustainable. So when the rewards are sustainable, they're not that high. But also 45% will be compounding. So I expect that within 2 or 3 months, the rewards for the Baton holders will actually be quite nice. When that happens, what we are going to see is that over 2 to 3 months, the price of Scepter will only have increased, and now the rewards for the Baton holders are quite high, partly due to the farming, but also due to the bot trading, and again the compounding effect, which means that every month or so, the rewards will be higher. So at that moment, we are going to have a good track record. And on top of that, we are working on Space DEX, which is, well, it's a DEX.
Yeah.
But it's not a random DEX. Like, we are doing it based on Bancor. So essentially, what we are looking at is a DEX that offers single asset staking. So it's very convenient for the investors. Partial impairment loss protection, so that you're not going to see the value of your assets decrease even if there is a lot of trading with it. And then it's also going to be cross-chain, which means that we're going to have a more efficient use of our TVL across the chains. And also it's going to be much more convenient for the investors who want to bridge and swap. And our main innovation is what we call dual asset allocation. Essentially, dual asset allocation means that we are going to be farming on another platform with 80% of our TVL. So let's take an example. Let's say that we have 100K USDC. We are going to keep 20K on our platform and 80K will be farming somewhere else. That 80K USDC is going to generate some rewards. Those rewards are going to be, let's say, gathered within the platform and redistributed to the liquidity providers and to the space and VE space holders. Space and VE space being the native tokens at SpaceDex. And because of that dual asset allocation, we're going to deliver an APR that is 2 to 3 times higher than the average APY for the other DEXs. So we are essentially going to attract a massive amount of TVL with it. And that will be beneficial to the Scepter and Baton holders in at least 2 different ways. The first is that we're going to do a massive marketing campaign. This is why we are seeking VC funding. And there are strong ties between WAND and SpaceDex. So the better the brand awareness for SpaceDex, the more people will also know about WAND. And if they kind of like SpaceDex, whether it's as liquidity providers or to buy space or VE space, they're also probably going to want some Scepter or some Baton assets. So this is going to kind of be a mutually beneficial relationship between the 2 platforms. The second thing is that a share of the revenues generated by SpaceDex will go directly to the WAND treasuries. So essentially, the bigger SpaceDex will be, like more TVL, more swap fees, the more revenues will go directly to the pockets of the Scepter and Baton holders. And finally, we're also going to develop some suites of products around SpaceDex. We're going to develop some products that will be used first and foremost as a way to make the management and investment of the Scepter and Baton treasuries just simpler, more automated, and more rewarding. And so on one hand, that means that more money will be generated with the one treasuries. And on the other hand, it also, I mean, because we're creating something that has very practical applications, we are developing them because it meets some needs. I think that some other projects and also some retail investors will be interested in what we are building with the SpaceX, like on top of SpaceX. And so we have quite a lot of ideas of products that we will be developing on top of SpaceX, which will generate more fees and more revenues and more TVR, which will benefit, of course, the space and V space holders, but also the Scepter and Baton holders.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. So essentially, the SpaceX will work as yet another way of solidifying the treasuries of the tokens involved in Wand, and provide another form of securing the power that you have behind those tokens. I think whenever projects are building, the more they build within their ecosystem that has high-end user functionality that provides utility and even more sources of revenue that complement one another, things really begin to progress and grow, and the sustainability of such a project strengthens day by day. So it's really interesting to hear that you have things outside of the Wand project that you guys are also working on. So what's your roadmap looking like for SpaceX? Is that something that we can expect to come relatively soon, or?
Well, relatively, yes. Towards the end of October, because we are going to use Banker V3 as a basis, but we have a fair amount of modifications to add on top of it. We also want it to be audited before we launch. And we want enough time to create this massive marketing campaign. What we are looking at is to make a campaign not just for DeFi users, because at the moment there is not that much money in DeFi. And they're marketing just isn't working very well these days. This is what our VC partners are saying. This is what we see across the board for ourselves and for the other projects and the influencers, that there's just not that much user engagement these days. So we're going to direct our marketing outside of crypto. And what we want is essentially that because of our dual asset allocation, like if you provide USDC or BUSD, maybe you can have like 20% APR, which is very good, especially as it is sustainable. And what we're going to do is that an investor who will have seen us through some advertisement, or maybe it's an artist who will have spoken about us, they don't have a wallet, they don't know Stargazer, they don't know MetaMask, and so on. We're going to say, okay, so we're not going to make you create a wallet. What you're going to do is, it's a bit like if you go on Amazon, you create your account with a long password, of course. In the background, we create a wallet for you. And it is going to be on the blockchain, and on the blockchain, there will be the information about your account, so that it's actually very secure. And all you have to do is take your credit card, say, okay, I want some staked USDC, for instance, and you just buy some staked USDC with that 20% APR. And for the retail investors, 20% APR, just for providing euros or dollars, it's very good.
Sure.
So this is going to be our strategy, to really reach outside of the usual crypto investors and to reach for a much broader audience.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you've really thought of a wide variety of avenues and functionalities that you can add to to the ecosystem to support every part of it. So it's very, very impressive. I, for one, am excited to see how things progress for you. And like you said, at the moment, marketing engagement is at an all-time low. Most investors buy hype instead of value, whereas the smart investors, which are the few, which are why not many people actually make money in not just crypto but also investing, is being able to buy the value before the hype. And when you get the hype, that's normally the best time to start taking some profits, but that's usually when most people begin to buy. I was just going to quickly just say to the audience, give them one more opportunity, see if anybody has any questions. We have a Wand AMA. Oh, I think someone's just popped one in there. We have a Wand AMA section just on the side where you can ask questions. Like we said, the best question will win a very generous $100 from Ylchema. So let's have a look. If anyone wants to chuck a question in there, I would urge you to do it relatively soon, and we can pass them over to Ylchema and get his thoughts. Cool. So we've had a question drop in from Fab. Great to have you on, mate. Appreciate you listening today. He has asked, do you have any plans to add more utilities to the tokens and the ecosystem? Is that something you've considered at this stage, or is that on the far outreaches of the roadmap after everything else?
So yeah, I mean, with SpaceX, we're not really talking about utilities. We're more talking about streams of revenues. We do want to make it possible to use Scepter as a collateral because its value will only increase. I think it's kind of the perfect collateral to use.
Yeah.
For Baton, we could also do it, but like the price would be much smaller, so I'm not sure that it would be very interesting to create that possibility. Although, I mean, we could also do it. Why not? When we have SpaceX, we are going to like integrate a kind of a lending platform to it so that it will be possible. But then for other kinds of utilities, I think that for Scepter, it's like quite limited because if it's only backed by stablecoins, that degree of security is limiting in itself. Although when we have a DEX, we also want to make it possible to provide Scepter as liquidity, so you could also stake it. And
yeah,
in
that's what
terms
I was just thinking about that actually. Obviously, when sort of looking to stake Scepter, because I guess the way that Scepter provides its value is off of people buying and selling it. So if people are staking it, essentially taking it out of circulation, you may have less people buying and selling, therefore less price appreciation.
unless if we do it with a buy and sell tax.
Sure.
So yeah, we would definitely think about the buy and sell tax so that it's not a way to create a secondary market, because then it would kind of ruin the whole idea of Scepter as an ever increasing token. And for Baton, one idea that I have, but that would be with a decision made with the community. We could also attribute a share of the treasury to some kind of seed investments in some projects. And an idea would be to offer the investors to kind of lock their Baton. And when you lock your Baton, you would not receive the airdrops from the general way of working for Baton, but instead you would kind of participate as a group to some seed fundings. And then you would receive the benefits of that seed funding. So it's just an idea like that. It's not a promise. It's not exactly in the roadmap, but it's like a hint at at the kind of things that we are thinking about.
Yeah, for sure. And I think everything that you've said would provide value back to the project. And I think, as time goes by and things develop with something so innovative and fresh of what you're doing, I'm sure you will have things will change, and there'll be opportunities that arise from situations that you find yourself in with this project that you may have not considered before. And projects always develop over time, and I think what you guys have as a base with Scepter, Baton, Wand, your treasuries, space decks, etc., is going to provide you with a very solid base to be able to play around with that capital and that liquidity and offer different incentives over time to your investors to facilitate even further progression of the performance of your tokens. Awesome. So we have another question here from Miguel. He says, has Wand looked into developing software as a service into NFTs that could provide a quote unquote real yield aspect, where the protocol could pay out yield to users based on revenue generation? Does that make sense?
I mean, it looks a lot like Baton.
Yeah.
It's not an NFT, but essentially with the Baton token, we pay out to the users the yield based on the revenue generation
From your investments and staking, etc.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's why.
Yeah. No, that's a really good question, Miguel. If you missed that, that's a really good question, mate.
So
but
just
Ylchema's one step ahead of you and already baked that into Baton.
just a short recap on Baton.
Yeah.
Essentially, it's a token that's backed by the Baton Treasury. We invest in some bot trading, stable coins, and blue chip tokens that will be farming. 40%, 45% of it are airdropped to the investors every week. 45% are compounded so that the revenues grow over time, and 10% are going to the dev wallet. So it is pretty close to what you suggested.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, I'm very I think the first time I sort of found out about your project, it instantly pricked up my ears, and I think that what you've built is extremely robust and has the potential to really offer a lot of value to a lot of investors. And I think as we briefly said earlier, over time, as awareness spreads, market sentiment turns, and you have proof in the pudding of real world data as to exactly how this works and how people are making money with it, what sort of passive income they're able to earn, and people can then quantify those results. And you're also going to have off of the back of that a growing community that are going to speak very positively of their real world results that they've had with you, which will compound that effect. And over time, things will begin to sort of snowball into your project and really assisting with the growth. And I think at this stage, I'm sure you'd likely agree that everybody says a bear market's a builder's market, and I think obviously the benefits of launching at the peak of a bull market, peak euphoria. You've got money everywhere. Everyone's throwing money left, right, and center. But I think projects don't prove themselves at that stage, and you're investing based off of complete euphoria and speculation, and that can create an investor base that becomes unhappy with your performance, which I believe is one of the most detrimental things. I think FUD is the most detrimental thing that can begin to come about for any project, because it's usually completely irrational and emotional. And I've seen it drive projects into the ground. Whereas I think with what the opportunity of what you guys have here is to, prove yourselves, what you've built, how it works, provide results, and create not just sustainable rewards for your investors, but sustainable growth that will facilitate healthy progression as you move forward, as the economy recovers, the market sentiment turns. You'll be in a prime position to be able to onboard as many users as possible. You would have worked out the kinks, and space decks will be coming around, and there'll be a lot of excitement about what you guys have built, and I think that will end up being extremely beneficial for the longevity of your project, because at the end of the day, you're not aiming to be here for 3 months. You want to be here for a long time, and to be able to provide a incredible product and service to your investors, but also for you guys to do well out of it as well, and your team. That's the goal at the end of the day. You have to be rewarded for your work, and I think at the end of the day, when you put the effort and the time in, and you work hard through these kind of markets, the rewards you get at the end of them are always far greater than the quick wins and the sort of give me it now kind of ways of going about it. So yeah, I think that's what you guys have put together here is brilliant. So I think that's the bulk of the questions. Miguel looks like he's furiously typing out another one, so we'll see if he pops up something quickly. But is there anything else you wanted to add or put across at all that we haven't covered here at Ylchema?
I mean, in terms of tokenomics and the roadmap, I think that we've been pretty thorough. Just a few numbers. Like at launch, we have raised right now in total we have raised 400K, which in the bear market is actually quite good. At the moment, the growth is fairly slow because the marketing hasn't really kicked in, and I think that when we see more results from Baton, and as we get closer to the launch of SpaceX, it's going to get much better. But at the moment, we're proving that the model works, and I think that when it takes off, it's going to be quite nice. And as you said, we will be in a prime position to really kind of explode in the next bull market.
Yeah, and I think that's the goal for everybody. That's I think I can speak for most people and say that I should have sold more at the top. And I think everybody's goal, the thing is, if you don't make mistakes, you can't learn, right?
Yep.
And you become, if you fail and walk away, you are turning your back on an opportunity to grow and put those hard-earned lessons to work to benefit your future. And I think everybody right now is looking, everybody that's still here, which is not very many people, is, are the ones that are ultimately going to bear the fruit of their labor as we begin to dial up again. And although it feels like we're never going to see more upside, we will, and it will happen. And the best thing you can do, not financial advice, is position yourself as well as possible within these situations. And some of most of the biggest winners in bull markets were released in bear markets, and I think you hit the nail on the head saying you'd be in a prime position. Just quickly circle back to Miguel. He's added one more question here. So not too sure if you're familiar with a project that's building on Constellation called The Void.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen too much of them, but Miguel's asked or said, to add more free marketing, perhaps one could look into creating a storefront on Enter the Void where they could turn these software utilities into NFTs to bring additional revenue from the bots and other softwares into the protocol. So not essentially a question, but maybe a suggestion. Miguel's a solid member of the DAG community, very knowledgeable Very knowledgeable fella, comes up with some really interesting ideas. So potentially there could be, a partnership or something for you to explore there. Maybe that's something you could have a look into at some point.
Yeah, I would need to look more into it because at the moment I don't really see how we could kind of turn Baton as a NFT.
Yeah.
Of course, we could make some NFTs instead of the tokens, but the model would be exactly the same. I don't see how we could use the software behind it as an NFT, but I'm happy to discuss it further to maybe have some more ideas. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, maybe there's something that could potentially come of that. There is so many interesting things being built right now, and I think that's one of the wonders of the bear market is you see people turning their attention away from their portfolios and putting their attention into their laptops and actually building things that are going to create the next wave of investors and influx to come in. And I guess that's the ebbs and flows of the market, isn't it? That's what creates the ups and downs. You have these down areas where people furiously build and create a lot of value. People then buy into value. You then get the bull market where people are, aping into all of these new projects that are gonna, in their respective industries, hopefully revolutionize them. So, yeah. Well, look, I think we've been going about an hour and 10 minutes, and I think we've covered some really good information here, Ylchema. So I think we can look to close it off here. If there's nothing else you'd like to say.
No, just thank you for hosting us, for your questions, and your warm welcome. And also thank you to the audience for listening, and also for your questions, Fab and Miguel.
Yeah, awesome. Listen, Ylchema, fantastic to speak to you today, mate. Obviously, we've had a few conversations in the past. I've always been super excited about what you're doing over at Wand, and yeah, obviously wish you guys the best. Grin and bear this bear market. Keep on building. Keep on doing what you're doing, and I think what you're providing is real value. And I was having a conversation with a few people the other day, actually in the Discord, talking about utility and value. And I think that really is going to be the bull run next, is people are going to be looking for real value, real utility, where they can be sure that their money is going to actually, be put to work in a real way, and they can, as much as you can in investing, bank on receiving returns. And I feel like what you guys have built really fits in well to that, that kind of sector. You've built real value, and I think gradually over time, that's going to be shown. And we'd be more than happy to host you again when you have updates and speak about you as much as possible within the Discord. And just support as much as we can, mate. So thanks so
I
much for
really
coming on,
appreciate your
Ylchema.
support.
Yeah, no, you're welcome, mate. And we'll catch up with you soon. Keep on grinding, and wish you all the best.
Thank you. You too, mate. Have a good night.
Awesome. Take care, buddy.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Cheers. Thanks so much, everybody, for listening. I really appreciate you guys chiming in. Thanks for the questions. We'll call a winner on the giveaway very soon. And we'll also going to upload a copy of the recording to YouTube on our new YouTube channel. So if you haven't already, head over to YouTube, search DAG DeFi, subscribe, turn notifications on. We're going to be adding more content in there as time goes by as well. And really appreciate the support from you guys in the channel. We're going to be announcing more AMAs coming soon. And stick with us. Let's build and keep growing through this bear market. And I'm sure we will all find great success as we get back into the bull. But have a good night, afternoon, or morning, wherever you guys are. And I'll talk to you in the chat soon. All the best, guys. Really appreciate you. Bye-bye.